Alrighty, so are we ready to get some flippy leaves going on now? So we're still using our 12 flat brush, okay? And what we're doing here is just like our dolphin nose that I was showing you earlier, but now we're doing a little bit more of a ribbon effect, okay? So some of you might have jumped on some of my other projects where we've added a ribbon to our design, right? Or maybe you've done my advanced leaves and I've showed you how to do multiple flips on some of our long slider grassy leaves, stuff like that, right? So if you played around with those, then sometimes it might be a little bit easy for you. But if you've never done any of those before, we definitely want to play around and loosen up and try a few ribbons. Okay, so we're just doing our push now with our beginnings like we were doing with our dolphin nose, right? But then now you're going to push, pop up on your chisel, slide a little bit, push, up on your chisel, slide a little bit, push. See how long you can go without running out of paint. Okay, it's a good little lesson to just play around, just on some nice big fat ones. Okay, you're going to practice them in both directions. Up on your chisel, go to the right now. Push down, make it nice and flat. Go to the right on your chisel. Push down. Okay, I'm running out of paint. Right, but you get the idea. Okay, so you guys with the recording, you're going to be able to stop, rewind, come back to this, and just keep repeating the process until you get it. Okay, so a lot of these aren't going to be that much pressure. So when you're doing these leaves, the little bit of a flip part, you want to have a little less pressure. Okay, so you're just going to be guiding it around that leaf and deciding maybe you want it to be a little bit longer and then come in and around and then curling in. Okay, so you can see by my examples, all my leaves are just a slightly little bit different. Some of my little curls are only along the top, right? And then you can flip right in and slide in around that with that leaf again. Okay, join it back in. So it's all about this little ribbon that you're going to keep practicing, right? So our full leaves, some of them are a little bit skinny and long, some of them are a little bit chubby and shorter. So I did try to change it up a little bit, but generally they are a little bit bumpy, kind of a little bit of waves to them, nice movement to them. Okay, so they don't have to be totally straight. Okay, and then the same way you did your calla lily, you're going to come from the top and then kind of just give it some bumps and pick up on your chisel a little bit and then bring that into your end. Okay, so again, if you have some spaces or globbiness, then definitely you can always smooth those out. And depending on how long you're going to make that leaf, some of them are really long, you might have to help it a little bit and go over it and add a little bit at a time just to get it finished. Okay, so just play with it a little bit more. You'll see when I do the design. Okay, if you want to make them long and skinny, you're going to just slowly put your pressure up and then jump up on your chisel. Okay, make them nice and smooth. You're going to go really long. Okay, so you see how I had to keep adding some paint in there to help me a little bit, right? And I don't care if my white gets a little bit dirty, okay? I don't want it to be a crisp white, bright white when I'm starting off with these leaves. Okay, then you slide down and then add some more paint in there, help it along, push it in there, and then add a little bit of floating medium to the side, or maybe your paint has got away on you like mine has, and I'm just going to pick it up and put it back where it belongs, and then try that stroke again. Okay, so remember the paper is going to be really draggy, and if you have too much paint in your brush, then it ends up being really globby. Okay, so it's that happy medium amount of paint. Don't be afraid to go over things again. Pick up some fresh paint to get your nice crisp edge. And then follow it through. Add a little bit of floating medium in there sometimes too. Will really help to smooth things out. Okay, get that coverage and get your ends looking nice and pointy at the top. Okay, so if you have to go over it a little bit while it's wet, move it up a little bit more, get it pointy, and then bring it back down. Okay, so I'm also going to show you guys how to fix things and add more shading to things as well. Right? So there's a couple different styles of leaves there. Okay, so generally I'm going to do my design. I'm going to place all my leaves where I want them, start doing some of my flowers and stems, and then once I get a feel of how everything is crowding together, then I'm going to be able to make the decision of where I want it to flip. Okay, so I'll show you through the process of the design, the creative thought process that I have when I do that. Okay. So here we're going to start off doing some of these flips here. Okay, like I said, do a bunch of leaves, make them different shapes and sizes, and then when they're all dry, then you can come back and start adding your flips. Okay, otherwise sometimes you get yourself in trouble and it gets a little bit too muddy because you're wet on wet. Okay, so I'm starting a small little one, working that in. I can move this around, slide it in and around here a little bit. Okay, so what you're doing is you're following the outside shape of your leaf with the dark, okay, but you're also guiding your white. So you're going to watch both sides of your brush at the same time. So you want to bump out that white, but you want to follow the outside line with your dark. Bring that in, slide it a little bit sideways on your chisel. Flatten your brush out when you want it wider. Tip it back over, and your dark is always doing the leading and the controlling of your shape. Okay, so again, this is a little bit slow motion, so I've made some areas maybe a little bit bigger. All right. And once you get used to it and get through to the dance of it all, and you see too again by my examples on some of the directions that I did, then maybe you could follow a little bit more too on why I would do only one side, and some I do both sides, or some I'll do the whole side of one, and then the other side I'll actually go in and just do little pieces of the bottom part. Okay, so if you do miss some of your side here, then yeah, you can always use the back of your brush and just kind of neaten things up a little bit along the outside of your line. Go over it again and just kind of neaten things up a little bit, right? Especially when you're doing it on one side will be definitely harder than the other, right? So, like I said, usually have your easy side, and then if you have to move your stuff around a little bit. Sometimes I'll actually do this side from the top, and you're actually working a little bit more backward, like sideways. So then that way you can see the top of your brush where it's going. It's following the outside of my leaf. And you see how I did this little rock? So I kind of pivoted there for a second. I just stop, slow down, pivot, and then move with my dark leading again, and then slide that straight out to the bottom of my leaf. Okay, so you just don't want no globby starts, guys. You just want a nice feather in, and then, like I said, you could always go in and smooth things out. And then if you need to fix the back line a little bit with the back corner of your brush, you can always smooth that in there. Okay. You can see how I'm holding my paper down. So if things are moving on you, make sure you're holding it down and you got control of what's going on in your practice. Okay. Keep adding floating medium, keep fighting with that paint, get it in there if it's resisting, okay? But you'll see to do these little flips on top of a previously painted leaf is going to be a lot easier than trying to get it into the paper. Okay? So again, just try to fool around. Like I said, doing this side is a little bit trickier, right? So move it over a little bit, And then I still did it, but I just was doing it a little bit more sideways so that I can get in there better. Okay, and then like I said, if you're right-handed like I am, then this is going to be your easy side. Just wisp that in, very, very subtle. And if you only want it to be a very subtle curl, then don't be pushing very hard. Just keep them very, very, very subtle looking, and especially on a really skinny, skinny leaf like this. And I'm really making this one leaf very dramatic curly, like we wouldn't go this curly. But again, this is great practice for you guys to do both sides like this, just to see how much room, how much do I have to push, how much do I want it to flip over, because the more you push, the bigger the flip is going to look, right? So really this one would look nicer, just tucked in a little bit more tighter, just a little smaller down here, right? So with practice, you're going to be able to play and then look at real leaves, guys, too. That, you know, it really helps to look at leaves that in real life on what they're doing, especially the leaves that go with that flower. They're all going to look a little bit slightly different. But like I said, this is a little bit more of a whimsical kind of monochromatic look, so it's not meant to look really, really realistic. It's just supposed to look really nice. Alright, so you may want to have those leaves come out a little bit wider. Okay, so this is all the learning lessons of all this as well. So really, how much do I have to make that leaf a little bit wider so that when I do that curl, I have a little bit more room. Okay, so more floating medium, more pressure. Okay, get that out a little bit fatter and bring that leaf in. Okay, and then again, like I said, I like to go over things and smooth them, especially all in one stroke, guys. So this way and then this way after. Even if you had to create the leaf in two sections, you know, doing that little movement just helps to really smooth up that top and get your little bounce that you will do differently on the downstroke that you wouldn't do if you go and flip it up the other way. Right? It just gives you a totally different shape. You can compare the two yourself and you'll see that there's a little bit higher pop. You'll start to bend and pop out a little bit differently on the top part, and here you're popping out on the bottom part. So it really helps to put a little twist on your leaf when you create them differently, okay, as opposed to trying to do it this way and then coming in and doing it this way. You see what happens? Your bump is on the exact same spot at the bottom here, which could be great for your calla lilies, right? If you feel like you want to do it that way. But like I said, I'm really encouraging you guys to advance now, and hopefully by now you're starting to see a little bit more. You're having that eye that you're seeing where I'm bumping out and smoothing in, and then coming out, bumping out, and then coming in smoother a little bit at the bottom. Okay. And then, like I said, you can take advantage of those areas and decide where you want just a little bit of a peak, and then you have a little bit more room. Maybe you only want two bumps, okay? So depending on how long your leaf is, if it's only a little short one, then maybe you only want like two little bumps to come around. Okay, a little bit more paint, a little bit more soft bump. And just right here where you're coming out, give it that little curl that's going to come in. Okay, so like I said, on the canvas, you'll be able to erase anything that you don't like if you come out of your line a little bit. Okay. And then again, this way is a little harder to do straight up and down, because you have to kind of see on both sides of your brush. And if you see, when I try to force myself this way, I can't see the underside of my stroke here, so a lot of times I'll have to come in and fix it. Right? So for this, definitely it does make it a little bit easier for your hard side to come in so you can see both sides of your brush at the same time. And then you can follow the outside part of your leaf a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm trying to do this really slow motion. Sometimes it doesn't always work. Alright. So with our branches, again, we're just doing our chisel strokes and then just a few. And you don't even have to put all of these, alright? So it just depends on what you can see. So sometimes you don't have space for a lot of them, right? So maybe you'd only see just traces of this one, but you might see 2 of them on this one, right? So what I usually like to do is, you know, put all that part in there. And then you're going to clean your brush and then come in with your floating medium and just your burnt umber again. Okay, make sure you have no white in there or any colors. Okay. Just your floating medium and burnt umber. And then this is where you can come in and add this little extra shading. Okay, I'm going to go into my second line here because I like it better. Okay, and just add that little extra shading in there. So you can see I'm not really covering that line, but I'm just showing you guys effects right now. I would actually put some coffee latte over that. I really wanted to fix that. Okay. And then follow that all the way around and just lightly wisp up to nothing when you come up to the top. Okay. We'll put coffee latte in there just to get rid of that. Alright, so just like I said, this is just my little fool around paper. You guys got the good one to show you what I'm doing exactly. Alright, so we definitely wanted to have that one stroke look in there. Right, so I'll show you on a nice one over here. Okay, so again, just very slightly settle on the other side of that white line. Okay, just with that little extra shading in there. And hopefully you still have some of those little remnants of that lighter transition in there as well. Okay, so hopefully your gradient is out there enough that you still see some transition from your dark in the very center of your vein, and then just a little bit lighter as you go out. Okay, so make sure your gradients aren't too high, guys. And then what I actually do too is I go all the way around the outside of my leaf a little bit too, so this really helps to add that little extra roundness to your leaf. Okay, so usually I'll do that part first, then I'll come in right here so I don't have to worry about jumping on top of wet paint. Okay, then I'll go along and I'll do all my one side of my leaves there that are easiest for me. Okay, so you can always go in and fix your edges a little bit more when you're doing your extra shadowing. Okay, so you still see that little remnants of coffee latte in there too. Then come in and do this side. Just subtle little shadowing. And then sometimes I'll even go up right along my vein line. Okay, the main one, the middle. And just intensify that a little bit more. And then of course you have to come around and do the back side of your leaf. Okay. And then, so if you do that back part first, then you won't have to worry about stepping on any wet paint in the front. And you're just adding that little bit more dimension in your leaf so that your little flips will stand out even more. Okay? So if you feel like you lost your white or your white is not intense enough, you know, I don't usually worry about it too much at this point. If I feel like I want just that little bit more highlights and spots, sometimes it's nice just to put it in spots too. So if you just want certain areas or maybe one side to be a little brighter than the other so it really pushes the illusion of what side is maybe curled a little bit more, like in this one here we have emphasis over here, so definitely I would like to have this side a little bit brighter, and you can definitely come in and brighten things up a little bit. Okay, come around and fix anything that you don't like. And you don't have to worry about anything else going outside because you're just doing a little bit of the white, and if it's all dry, then you don't have to worry about the outside getting covered. Okay, so this will just help to pop out this side. Right, you can always fix both sides if you feel like it really needs it. Right, but definitely it does give it a nicer pop, having one side a little bit brighter. Definitely over here, I'm a little wishy-washy, you know, so if you have to fix something that's not bright enough, then definitely I don't worry about keep adding paint. I just keep moving on. If it looks good and it's the right shape and size that I'm looking for, then definitely I'll move on. And then it's just so much more precision and quicker just to kind of pop in that little extra highlight on anything that you want to add it to. Okay, and then like I said, if you go over your line a little bit, you can always erase to clean that up. Alright, so there's a bunch of different leaves that I did on that main design. Okay, but if you guys want to see how I did that flip leaf, okay, so you definitely need a lot more floating medium. Okay, so I didn't put that in your sheet, but I'll give you a little bonus now, okay? So you're just basically going to come up like a slider leaf. Okay, remember those slider leaves? You're just kind of pushing up and leaving it as a point. Okay, but with the bent over one, there's a stop point where it actually got broken. So you almost want to come over at a little bit of a curve, like you're going to start bending over somewhere, right? And again, if you're practicing those separate little dolphin noses, you know, this is your slider leaf, and then it got broken. There it's bent in half, and then now it's flipped over. Okay, and there's almost like a one-stroke leaf, and sort of like like I said, I call it my dolphin nose, right? So again, if you feel like you need to go over things a little bit more, usually I'll stop. I'll go and do my stroke here to do this part, and then if I'm not happy with the coverage or the highlightness or whatever is going on, I'll stop and I'll just go over it again until I'm happy. Then when I'm happy with that part, then I'll move over and do my finish. And then if I feel like I have to go over it again, I can always wait until it dries. You can add a little bit more shading on the back side of it. Fix your white highlight on the front part. Maybe add a little more shading. I'm going to show you guys. Maybe I'll pop one of these guys into the main design too. Alright. And then definitely if you feel like you have to go over it again, then, you know, this is where you're just going to pop in that little bit of that stroke by itself, and then you can always intensify and fix anything that you don't like. Okay, so again, this is my easier side of doing things. If you're left-handed, then you might feel like you're a little bit more easier to do these, so be choosy on where you put these guys first. If you only need one of them to really stand out really nicely in your design. Okay, so you know, if you're better at doing them in this direction, then when you're finished your design, just put it onto that side is my suggestion. Okay, and if you're easier to go off into the right direction, then throw it off into the right direction of your design. So then that way you're doing the easiest one that's for you, but keep coming back and practicing that hard one. Okay, and because that one was the one that was the hardest for me. So you definitely want to come back a little bit more, make this a little bit more fatter, and then come down and around. All right, so you have a little bit more of a length going on. Oops, I went backwards on my brush. So I guess that means I'm done. And like I said, keep practicing your little ribbon, get that dance going on. Then go practice your full leaves. Okay, if you want to leave them just like that, you can do that too. If you want to just add a couple little subtle ones just to a couple, you don't have to do all of them like I did. And then I'll definitely show you how I did more in the whole design. Okay, so but this is just basically the gist of what you're doing to help build that monochromatic design and get those colors in there and extra dimensions and shadows and advanced little tricks that you can use for a lot of your different designs. Okay, not only for this.